back to a new episode of the Triumph Roadster restoration. Today, following on from last episode, I'm going to be draining the fuel tank, what's left in there, and then hopefully trying to remove it, because if you remember from last episode, the fuel line was completely and utterly blocked. So we're going to try and de-rust the fuel tank if that's possible, and then if we get time, I'm also going to drain the oil out of the differential and see what I need to do to replace that. So, let's get going. I'll now go back underneath the car to the fuel tank, which I'm getting to know very well now. There is the fuel tank, and I should be able to just take out the 4 bolts on the retaining straps, and then hopefully the filler neck will be pretty easy to take off because it's got a little rubber join in it up there. And then the line, of course, we know how easy it is to remove and how difficult to put back in. So I'm going to start by removing the 4 bolts. I'm now at the front of the tank because I tried removing the bolts at the rear and they just spun. But luckily on this side you can access the bolt at the top and the nut at the bottom, so I was able to get it undone, and I'm now going to try and get it off the rest of the way and then move on to the other one, and hopefully I'll be able to slide the tank out at the front, but I'm not sure how well that'll work, so I'll have to see. Now on to the next one. This one's got some sort of earth strap on it which has been cut off. Don't want that dribbling on the camera. So I've just opened up the back of the car here, so you can see the dicky seat and various bits of mess inside. So these seats should fold forward, and then I'll lift up the carpet, and that will allow me access to the little cover which covers the fuel tank and the little sender unit. So I should be able to undo the wires on that, and hopefully maybe even the filler neck which runs down behind this bit of carpet here. This is much more like an archaeological dig than a car repair, but I think that must be the fuel tank sender. So if I remove these 2 wires from somewhere under this dirt, that should allow me to release the tank a bit more. That's the ground connection released. I've got the Lilliputian spanner out for this one. Oh, finally. The demonic Lilliputian nut has gone. Ah, phew. So I'm now just going to put this black bit of tape on the ground wire here, like that, just so I don't forget which one is which, in lieu of a label. And I'll also put in the screw that came out. That's not it. It's that one. And in case you want to know, that was the Commodore Garden 13/64 spanner. I've now put the access panel back on loosely, and this vine here I pulled off the bit of garage, and it's holding the wires in place so they can't drop down underneath when I take the tank out. Now I'm going to turn my attention to the fuel filler neck, which lives under this bit of carpet here. I'm going to carefully remove that. Don't want to damage anything because it's so old. Ooh, there it is. I'm not sure how in depth I'll have to get to that rubber joint, which I think is unfortunately underneath. Well, I've actually just discovered that you can access the filler neck through the rear wheel arch, so I'm going to whip off this wheel and we'll have a look. The Jubilee clips on it look absolutely ancient, so hopefully we'll be able to get them undone. Here we are with the wheel off. I've put it in a safe place and I've put all the nuts back on the hub, and you can see the huge drum for the brakes, and we can also see the rotten old rubber hose which connects the fuel neck to the fuel tank. So I'm going to try and remove the Jubilee clips on that, and hopefully we'll be able to just whip it off when the tank comes out. I've now loosened everything else off the tank, like the filler neck. I haven't actually done the fuel line, but maybe I'll do that now. And then I'll take out the 2 bolts, which I've loosened earlier, and that should be it for the tank. It should just gradually, hopefully not flop onto me, but gradually lower itself down. And I'll put a brick underneath just to make sure it doesn't fall out. So now I'll put the catch can underneath and remove the petrol line. Well, I think the reason that the tank hasn't dropped out yet is partially because this strap here is still holding it on slightly, and partially because there are lots of rocks jammed up between the chassis and the tank itself. So I'm going to try and dislodge the rocks. And I'm also going to try and loosen this now. I've got a bit more access with a spanner. So luckily I was able to loosen this slightly, and now it moves a bit, or I was able to get it to move there, like that. And that should have allowed a bit more room to get the tank out. So I should, hopefully I'll be able to dislodge these rocks after hiding up between the chassis and the tank itself. Don't seem fixed in place. Oh, the tank moved a bit then. I think with rather some wiggling it should eventually come out. The tank is almost out. I've been battling with it for ages and eventually resorted to tapping it with the rubber mallet and a block of wood to try and get it to shift, because this bar has been, and the tank for that matter, have both rusted up and have been undercoated. So it's sort of much thicker than it would have been when they put it in the factory more than 70 years ago. So we're going to keep trying, and hopefully it should pop out shortly. It's almost there. I can get it to touch the floor now. Oh, phew. One petrol tank. Here is the tank. Here's the rotten old rubber hose for the fuel neck. Looking inside, you can just make out the white painted baffle, which stops the petrol sloshing around too much. and it doesn't look too bad actually, I'm surprised. The rest of it's all covered in mud and mess, and this is just a selection of the mud, choice selection, which dropped off into the pan when we were trying to get it out of the car. Well, with the fuel tank out, you can see underneath much better now. Doesn't look bad at all really, just this bar which held the tank in, so annoying. But now on to the next job, which is draining the diff. I can't imagine there's a great deal of oil left in there. I mean, look at the state of the thing. Looks like all the oil's on the outside rather than the inside, but if there is some, I'm going to take the plug out and it'll pop out and hopefully land in the drip pan. The manual informs me that this takes EP130 oil, so that's what I'll be refilling it with, but I won't be refilling it until next time because I haven't been able to find some yet. Again, it doesn't look too bad. There's still a bit of a honey colour in it, but it does look slightly blacker and certainly less free flowing than the other oils I've drained out so far. Well, here's the diff oil. There was much more than I thought actually, so that's probably a good sign for the health of the diff. The oil itself is a sort of greeny colour. It's not too bad though. But now it's time for a cup of tea. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Draining the tank is something which we probably should have done when we first got the car, but I was hopeful that we wouldn't need to. Oh well, these things happen with old cars, so nothing we can do about it. But other than that, I will say thank you very much for watching. Ta-ta for now, and I will see you in the next episode with some diff oil.